Hello everyone, Sam here from Mind Body Medical. So today I want to talk to you guys about zinc deficiency and about the cardinal signs of zinc deficiency to be aware of in yourself, in your friends, in your family members, colleagues. So if you recognize these, if you recognize it in the people around you, you have the tools and the information you need to take proactive control of it. So if you could help spread the word, if you could like the video, if you could share the video, if you could subscribe to the channel and help us embed empowered self-care into people's lives, that would be very, very helpful. So zinc. Zinc is one of the most important minerals within the body. And you can see just by looking at the list how important it is in terms of the roles it fulfills in the body. So it's fundamental to immunity. It keeps our immune system in tip-top condition. It allows us to fight off infections. It allows us to identify infections. It just keeps our immune system in tip-top condition. It's fundamental for cell production. Obviously, we've got cells that are dying and new cells are being created every second of our lives. Zinc is intimately involved in the process of creating new cells. It's fundamental in healing damage within the body, tissue damage, muscle damage, sports injuries, any kind of damage to the tissues of the body, zinc is involved in. And then lastly, at the genetic level, at the core level of our being, zinc helps the recreation of DNA, and it's the regeneration of DNA that allows our body to stay fit and young and healthy as we get older. So you can see they're not small things, they're very, very important things to what it is to be functioning as a fit, healthy human. So what are the key signs of a zinc deficiency? This is the biggest thing. These are the signs and symptoms you need to be aware of in yourself and those around you so that you can become more proactive in identifying if zinc's involved. Because if it is involved, it can be a really quick fix for these kinds of problems. So one of the biggest ones to be aware of, one of the main ones to be aware of is a compromised immune state. If you're noticing you're getting cyclical colds, infections, bronchitis, chest infections, sinusitis, recurrent urinary tract infections, anything like that, or even if you get a cold, but then it takes you 3, 4, 5+ weeks to get rid of it. You're still walking around with low-grade congestion, mucus, just feeling run down, under the weather, and an inability to clear infections quickly is one of the cardinal signs of there being a zinc deficiency. Particularly if that's concurrent with a general lack of energy. If you're feeling exhausted, fatigued, tired, lethargic, just feeling lacking oomph, lacking vitality, then zinc will be one of the first things I would try to proactively address. Weight loss. If you're experiencing unexpected weight loss, we know from the science that zinc is heavily involved in that process, but it's important to stress that's a key red flag. Unexplained or unplanned for weight loss is a red flag for lots of other more serious conditions. So if you are experiencing unexplained weight loss, make sure you get that checked out by your GP or your primary care provider to make sure there's no other red flags going on. Mouth ulcers, the number one presentation for us. The number of people we've seen in clinic over the years who get recurrent mouth ulcers and it's been nipped in the bud within about a month of zinc supplementation. If you're experiencing recurrent mouth ulcers, a mouth ulcer every 4, 6, 8 weeks, the first thing to do is start targeting your zinc without exception. Thinning hair. Zinc is a mineral that is so profoundly involved in the body's capacity to produce healthy, lustrous hair. If you're noticing your hair quality declining, if you're noticing more hair falling out, if you're noticing a thinning of your hair, very first thing to do is target your zinc. Skin rashes are heavily implicated as well if there's a zinc deficiency. This is one of the most evidential ones from the research. Loose stools, not diarrhea, just stools that are loose and not well formed chronically. So it's a standard thing to have loose stools for months and months on end. Cardinal sign of a zinc deficiency, particularly if it's concurrent with generalized signs of IBS like bloating, cramping, distension, abdominal pain, those kinds of things. And then last but not least, low mood. If we're suffering from low-grade depression, flat mood, blue, sad syndrome, just feeling like we're lacking emotional oomph, emotional vitality, then zinc is probably going to be involved in that mechanism somewhere. So why? If you're experiencing a handful of those signs, if you're seeing those symptoms in yourself or those around you, what are the causes of it? Why haven't we got enough zinc? So the obvious one, the biggest one, is that we haven't got a sufficient intake of zinc, dietary zinc. We're not eating the right foods in the right volumes to keep our zinc levels topped up. Vitamin D deficiency is one of the biggest ones at this time of the year. In January now, the Department of Health, most countries now have very clear guidelines that we should be supplementing vitamin D from October to May. This time of the year, if we're not supplementing, the chances are we will be vitamin D deficient, almost certainly. If we're vitamin D deficient, we're very likely to be zinc deficient, because vitamin D is intimately linked in the way the body synthesizes zinc. So if you're not taking a supplement of vitamin D, then and you're seeing a handful of those zinc deficient symptoms, and that's one of the first things we need to look at. Chronic stress. Zinc is involved in the creation of lots of neurotransmitters and neurochemicals. Stress is involved in dysregulating that mechanism. So if we're experiencing chronic low-grade stress, that will be affecting the way the body is utilizing and synthesizing zinc. And lastly, over-exercising. A lot of research looking at triathletes, endurance athletes, CrossFit athletes who are exercising heavily, day in, day out, particularly if they're not resting properly. It's absolutely linked to a low level of circulating zinc. So there are others, but they're the four main factors that inform a zinc deficiency, and therefore the zinc deficient symptoms we just looked at. So if you're seeing that, if you're noticing a handful of those symptoms, you're thinking, yeah, this is definitely me, or my husband, or my wife, or my brother, or whoever it is, what can we do about it? And the good news is that it's easy. It's rectifying zinc deficiency is quick, it doesn't take a lot of time, and it's very sustainable. So one of the first things to do is make sure we're upping our dietary intake of zinc. It's the most sustainable, it's the most natural, it's the easiest. And it's not difficult to do. Seeds are a great provider of readily available zinc. Nuts, almonds are fantastic. Green peas loaded with zinc, wild rice and red meat are your main providers of zinc. Stress management. If we know we're experiencing stress, try to integrate something like meditation, yoga, forest bathing, nature immersion into your life to snip that mechanism in the bud. And then most importantly, point 3 and point 4, supplementation. If we're zinc deficient, we need to up those levels quickly so the symptoms disappear. We need two things at the same time. Start a vitamin D supplement. 500 to 1,000 international units I use a day is a great dose to target that. And then we need to add in the zinc itself, the most important component. So if you're noticing the symptoms of zinc deficiency, start with 15 milligrams a day. That will rectify the deficiency quickly, and then dropping down to 10 milligrams a day as a long-term plan to keep that deficiency from coming back again, whilst upping your dietary intake as well. And if we're doing that, should be able to keep on top of our zinc levels, which means we will regress those symptoms and we'll begin to feel a lot better, a lot healthier, and a lot more vital. So try and be aware of those symptoms. A lot of people walking around with them. If you see someone with that in conversation, help them, give them the power they need, the information they need to take control of their own health in a very proactive way, so that we're putting ourselves in charge of how we're living and our health, rather than it being something external. And that's what empowered self-care is all about.